Well, throughout my decades in prison, I've been blessed to have people in my life that when like some people come and go, but I always had somebody there. But before you close, Gil, I would like to say this. Like sometimes I've done other podcasts with Omar before, and some people ask Omar, why didn't you ask him this? Why don't you ask him that? I don't know your form, I don't know your plateau, but I would say anybody who sees this podcast and they have questions that they want to follow up, that if they were a podcast interviewer, they want to ask me. Listen, I have no shame in my game. You want to ask me anything, ask me anything. No bars hold. You can ask anything, and I invite people to ask you the question. You can direct them to me, or we'll come here again and we'll address those issues.
Now that you said that, I wanted to ask both of you guys something. So, welcome back to another episode of Unshackled Building Bridges. I'm here today with my brother Ronnie, but today it isn't about us. Today we're sitting down with someone who spent 42 years behind the wall before being exonerated. David, for the people listening that might not know you, you got a deep story, brother. Why don't you start us off telling your story in your own words, however you want to lay it down, where you from, what happened, and where you been to.
Okay, so mostly, I guess people can identify or become aware of me because of my release after 42 years in prison for a crime I was not part of at all in any way, shape, or form. My cousin Jimmy and I, we were exonerated, and so since then, our story's being circulated so we could. My purpose of doing a podcast is to try to get a message out there for other people who are familiar with me or familiar with my story, so set the record straight and just lay out some things of my experiences I've shared that I think are important for other people, our young brothers coming up. They can realize, the path that you take is going to determine the rest of your life, and you could be in jail, languishing in prison. Years go by before you can do anything about it. And in our case, we were innocent men, and it just took so long because the judicial system moves very slowly. They're not going to just release you on their own. You have to fight for it, tooth and nail. And without the right representation, it just makes it that much longer. Part of my imprisonment was 17 years in isolated confinement, and that was severe confinement. And so that impedes you from doing anything real substantial to make some changes for your case. You have to have the right attorney, the right legal representation. You have to know what you're pursuing, and be relentless in that. And when they have you in confinement, you're not able to do any of those things, and so you just have to depend on outside sources to help you. And you never give up. Some people along the way, they feel like it's hopeless, and they just become complacent, and they just accept their conditions, and they get used to a routine. Because prison, if you don't have a routine in prison, then your day is flustered. It's topsy-turvy. So it's good to have a routine, but you also have to persevere. You have to keep your eyes on the prize in order to win your freedom.
So, now you say this about isolation, spending 15, 17 years in isolation up in Tamms or something, I believe, because I read your story and stuff. But can you walk us through from the moment that when it started, when they told you pack your bags up, or did they handcuff you and just ship you overnight or naked? I don't know what. I've been in prison, so I know what it's like a little bit, but everyone has a different story. So what was your story when they told you to pack your bags up?
Well, first of all, they built the Tamms SuperMax prison in the most rural county in the state of Illinois. And there was nothing there, and when they were shopping around to build the prison, like that little town held the high school, had the band, and they laid out the red carpet because there's nothing in that area, right, economically wise. Right. So they want to use us, people from Chicago, to be like cattle for them, like to have economic, and we're a commodity for them. because without that prison, there's nothing really going on down there. So they lobbied hard. But before they lobbied hard, what led to that, which a lot of people are knowledgeable of, was the exposure of the Richard Speck tapes, which was, it caused a lot of controversy. Richard Speck, for those who don't know, was a convicted mass murderer. He wasn't a serial killer. Serial killer, it does it on a pattern. He did all his crimes in one night. And so he was like our version of Charles Manson, someone who was not well liked by the public. And some guys took it upon himself to make a video inside the prison using video equipment. In prison, we had video equipment to record sports events, church events and stuff. They had access to those video recorders, and they made a tape with Richard Speck, which caused a scandal. And
so now, CBS.
Yeah, it was all over. They did a week-long expose on all the prisons, and so there was a public outcry. We need to do something about this prison running rampant with corruption. And so this was during a prison building boom all across the country, and these prisons were on the stock market. So administrators had conflict of interest because they had stock money in the building of these prisons. And so then before they built the prison, they were doing some tours around the prison, and I was in Pontiac at the time. And when they came through there, they're looking, and some of the dumb inmates were like putting on a show, a spectacle. They take their shirt off, flexing their muscles, and these legislators and these people who are deciding whether or not to build this prison, seeing these crazy looking guys, and they decided to build this prison. So this prison was to hold 500 men. And they called it the worst of the worst. We're going to put the worst of the worst guys in that prison.
Triple max.
Yeah, SuperMax, the most. This prison, when they sat down, if you know anything about Abu Ghraib prison, they had a legal team that said, look, this is what we can do and stay within the law. We're going to put these terrorists in a box, literally in a box. This box has these dimensions. We can't go past these dimensions because we're breaking the law. So they went actually up to the inch of what this person could be in this box. And that's what they did in TAMS. They didn't put us in a box. Well, our yards was like a box. What they did was, we're going to subject these men to these conditions, and they call it behavioral modification. So they say, okay, it's an attitude adjustment. We're going to put these men here, and it's a big experiment. It was really a big experiment to see what's going to happen to these men, because we never had that in Illinois. So then they give us some harsh conditions. They put a mentally ill person on the tier with us. He's banging all night. And we had one guy that was really disruptive, and I remember asking him when he finally calmed down, why are you banging on these doors all night? And he's like, I'm hearing voices in my head, and these voices are telling me all kind of crazy stuff, and I'm trying to drown the voices out. So that's why I'm banging, to get the voices out away from my thoughts. I said, okay, well, you're disturbing everybody, but this is what we were subjected to. And a lot of people, they lost their sense of respect, acting crazy themselves after a while, because that place was just a terrible place. But as far as my introduction to that place, when they said that they were going to house the worst of the worst, they need a prison for the worst of the worst. And then, okay, lo and behold, they don't have a bunch of worst of the worst, 500 worst of the worst. They don't have 500 worst of the worst. So now they're picking anybody. People who they had an infraction 10 years ago, and 10 years since they've not been in trouble. But because they did something 10 years ago, they were putting them in TAMS. So now it's no longer, we need the worst of the worst for the prison. We need a prison for the worst of the worst. We need worst of the worst to put them in there. So housing everybody and everybody. And in my case, the reason why they put me in TAMS, okay, so when I came to prison, I was adjusting to the prison life, and years go by before without you even realizing it. And I was doing okay in prison. I had a job in the visiting room, and through my time in the visiting room, it was dawning on me the injustice of my conviction and my placement there. And I saw people in that visiting room, visitors that were denied for really wrong reasons. And in the Hispanic culture, we have two names, two surnames. And if your name was, for instance, a guy's mom, Maria Lopez Ramirez, and she had, on the son's visiting list, he put Maria Ramirez, he didn't put the Lopez part, they were denying that lady. to come in. And this lady would travel distances.
Yeah, because that was far away.
You know, you come far. And I started speaking out on that. And I was told, listen, man, keep your mouth shut, mind your own business, stay in your lane. And then I didn't. And they call it good trouble. You know, it's trouble, but it's good trouble. It's good for a good purpose. I didn't have to step up like that. But when you step up like that, all of a sudden you're labeled as some kind of militant or problematic inmate. And so then they label you this way, and then it leads to other things. They retaliate against you. They'll come search your cell and toss your cell up. And I was a person, I didn't want to file grievances because I know they don't basically go anywhere. You have to file a lawsuit. And so when you file a grievance, it's your only recourse. You file a grievance and then you get immediate retaliation by the administrators. So then you pursue it more. And next thing you know, you're in a world of trouble, and that's how I ended up in TAMS. I ended up in TAMS for that reason. They could call it whatever they say a gang leader. It's not a gang leader because we crossed lines of one group to another to help each other. And when you do this, then all of a sudden you're a rebel rouser, and then you find yourself in TAMS. So I went to TAMS, they just had me locked down. But you know, you asked about my introduction to TAMS and how it happened. So, you know, I'm in the regular prison, and the administrators came and got me. I was at work, and they were looking for me. They put some handcuffs on me. They sent me to New Mexico, and prison in New Mexico.
Oh, New Mexico? You went to New Mexico first?
Yeah, I went to New Mexico.
Oh,
Before TAMS opened, they sent me out of state. They sent me to New Mexico. And when they send you out of state, you know, they don't tell you where you're going. They say for security reasons. So all you know is you're going to get on the airplane. And the administrators told me, you're going to get on the airplane. If you give us any trouble, we're going to shoot you up with some Thorazine. We'll handcuff you you'll be in a wheelchair. You're going to be knocked out for the whole trip. You're going to wake up, you're going to be in another state. I said, look, man, I'm a man. I'm whatever happens, let's go with it. And I was in New Mexico. They put me in the hole there. And then after a period of observation, they say, you know, see if I don't get any trouble, cause any problems. They let me to population. I was in population. I was doing okay. And then one day they came and got me. They opened TAMS and they sent me to TAMS. Going to TAMS, when the officers came and got me, they were in tactical gear. So they were dressed up in the riot gear. And they do this to disorientate you. And when I walked in TAMS, I knew it was a whole other level of reality because they put me in a holding cell. And this holding cell was brightly lit, like a stadium, like a park. And they strip you butt naked. So I'm standing in the holding cell butt naked for like an hour. And I'm telling the officers, hey, listen, man, can I get some clothes? And they're brushing me off, blowing me off. We'll get you some clothes when we get it to you. And they're sitting there, right there. They're not doing anything. They're sitting down, just, you know, talking to each other. And then, you know, the mental health administrator came to see me. And it was a female. And she said, I have to ask you some questions. You know, are you allergic to anything? You know, are you on medication? I said, excuse me, ma'am. I don't feel comfortable, and this is inappropriate. I'm standing here butt naked in a well-lit area. Can I get some clothes before you ask me these questions? And so the first thing she said was, are you refusing to answer my questions? I said, no, I'm not refusing to answer questions. I'm just saying in a respectful way that I feel uncomfortable. This is very humiliating, very degrading, very degrading. And I'm asking you, can we please do this after I get some clothes? I don't feel comfortable at all. And she's like, so you refuse to answer the questions? I said, no, I'm not refusing to answer questions, I'm just asking. She said, look, I'm not in charge of the clothes. I'm gonna answer these questions and then I'm gonna go. And so I was like dumbfounded, like, wow, that was not good at all. A couple minutes later, the mental health administrator came. She had a clipboard, another female. And she said, I'm here to ask you about your mental state. I was like, if you're here to ask me about my mental state while I'm standing here butt naked in a well-lit area, can I please get some clothes? You know, this is very humiliating for me. This is degrading. And she's like, are you refusing to answer my questions? And she jotting down some stuff. I was like, no, I'm not refusing to answer questions. I'm just saying, you know, this is wrong. And she asked him the standard questions. You know, are you hearing voices? Do you want to hurt yourself? In the background, I hear marching, the cadence of the officers. They had a cadence in TAMS we are the TAMS SuperMax team, and they hit the shields with the baton. Yeah, the club, and they're walking. I thought it was like, wow. And this planet Earth, where did these people put me? What put me at? Mm-hmm. But incidentally, later I found out when they said that inmate was combative, and inmate was aggressive. I wasn't combative or aggressive at all. I didn't raise my voice. I clearly stated to him, I'm uncomfortable. This is humiliating. Can I please get close? That doesn't make me combative. But in TAMS, they use a point system against you. So those are points used against me coming through the door. And these are points that they hold against you when they evaluate whether or not to release you or not. So now coming through the door, I'm having negative points against me simply for asking a human decency sort of request, can I have some clothes?
Wow. So, just for our audience know, sometimes people don't understand, how we get humiliated and we get, put through these tests when we're in there, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's very humiliating, and I'm sorry to hear that, brother. I'm really sorry to hear your story, and I don't know if Ronnie wants to talk to you now for a while, but I'm kind of set back by what you just said, brother.
Well, being in prison that many years, it kind of like scars you about people that purposefully and intentionally do these kind of things to other human beings. At the same time, the law says to incarcerate for the seriousness of an offense, but it has the B clause to that says to restore us to useful citizenship, and that's the part that's not honored. They like hide that when they create Class X. That's a whole nother story to talk about. How the system came into that Class X, how it evolved into what he went into. His first years weren't that way, it evolved later on. But I'm glad that we brought his name, we didn't mention his name, is David Ayala, and it's a well-known name through that system. And we have a couple commonalities. Is one, he was incarcerated at 18 years old, I was incarcerated at 18 years old. I spent my teenage years, my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, and a piece of my 60s in prison, as well as he did. So basically, we matured from young man all the way into, being elderly man upon our release. So it's kind of it's not a question, it's kind of a question, and then it's going to be a question, but it's something that you and I experienced every day, and it always, you could say it baffled me. I call it like a dilemma. I used to just laugh at it, that they loved us and they hated us, you know what I mean? So the controversy that we faced, you and I both at the same time, what happened to me, same thing was, we were actually peacemakers all the time. All the time there was a threat of death there at all times. So we were under a gun at all times, and they used that gun many times to harm people, and that's part of the system. So that wasn't the problem. The problem was David had influence with people. They liked him. They gave him a job in the visiting room. He helped families and mothers, fathers, everybody. And he also had influence to stop hostile people. And we were in a sewer system, you could say, of hostile people that always would act up. But they respected David, they respected me, and hey, why don't you don't do that? Would you talk to this guy or not? And we would stop so many different disturbances. At the end of the day, sometimes the officer would come, thank you for that, thank you for allowing me to come to work and going home in one piece. I come every day not knowing. So we walked years and years of that. So they would call us gangbangers. They would have derogatory names. When I went to the parole board, he's a thug, he's a gangbanger, he's a gang leader, and he went through the same thing. They had us in that light. This is a no good guy. But at the end of the day, it was us who would go around to slow down. Hey, young guy, slow down with that, slow down with that. So they respected it in that manner. But at the same time, and it's kind of like, I think back at that time, and I walked through that time, but I was telling myself now, why did I keep doing it, knowing they were gonna dog me after I helped them? Here we are being compassionate human, our human nature, to help somebody. And like when we would help somebody, they would crack back on us saying that you don't have a problem, you never have a problem, but you always got somebody else's problem. So from my point of view, and I'm gonna ask him about his point of view, was that I couldn't see a person suffering, and he didn't know how to get out of that suffering. He couldn't represent himself. He couldn't advocate for himself. And a lot of those people we were around advocated to the violent part. After they asked for help and they didn't get it, they would contemplate the seriousness of an offense to go in that regard, you know, and live in that frustration. So, you know, because Dave worked in the JC's was a program, it was called a benevolent program of giving people and helping people with that. He worked in the visiting room. He was a leader in the community, you know, in the sports arena, you could say, helping people with that. And then at the same time being that peacemaker. So to be turned around after giving your life to these people to save them, and you're not, at the time I didn't contemplate that I was a savior. I didn't understand that language. It was just our nature of just doing it. But when you become older and start studying and learning stuff, you're like, man, I wish.
So you're talking like a catch-22 situation where I help you, but at the same time, I'm gonna use you and hurt you. Something like that.
It's a catch-22 situation, but with death attached to it, because we were in a building unit where, you know, there was dead bodies after these incidents. It's not just, you know, you're a target at all times. You can be a victim at any time. You know, we've seen that multiple times. But the majority of the time, when we had enough time to stop things, and him and I, David and I, have many times where incidents were brewing that were going to become vital, where there was going to be or possibly be that detriment, how we would leave a building and violate rules, picking up the institution phone, calling to each other. We're not supposed to do that. Hey man, I need you right now. Or something happened, hey man, you need to get over here right now. But these are the things behind the scenes people don't even know. Because when they say David Ayala, the first thing they want to say, bad guy, gang leader, bad guy, and whatever else, life sentence, whatever else. Oh, that's Ronnie, that's so-and-so, you know, and gang leader, bad guy. And that was the marginalization that they stuck on us. His to the extent where they sent him to New Mexico, Utah, out of state, 2 TAMS. So I didn't go that route. But he experienced the extremity of what they'll do of law enforcement. So I'll go back to the reason why I'm asking this. You know, I had numerous, through the years, as people, we had life. I had 600 years, he had life. Right. So many people left before us and went home. And before they went home, when we would be around them, in my case, yes, and probably his, that they would come back and, you know, I made it, I'm going home, I'm going home. I wouldn't have made it if you didn't do the things that we did, and you guys were our mentor. And then from my point of view, I was standing there, I would look at him like, I would hear him and not understand it in a full sense, because I didn't plan it and plot it. And I was a planner and a plotter, and I needed to do those things that I knew I was in charge of it like that. So when they would hit me with that humanistic side, that humble side, and come and say, man, you helped me, man, thank you, like that, it would shake me up, you know, in a sense like that. But it kept happening year after year, because I spent 47, he spent 42. So after the first time, 10 years, and after 20 years, and after 30 years, all these guys go home and do that. Or wardens walk up to us after an incident, man, thank you very much, you know, you helped us. Don't hurt my officers. And then when it would happen, so you have all these people coming to congratulate us on such a high magnitude and high esteem, but then turn back around and a day later you're a dog. You know, treat us like a dog.
So one of the things that struck me mostly about TAMS, the building of TAMS and the operation of TAMS. So these administrators at one point in your prison time, they would say, listen man, we recognize you as somebody who could be a moderating voice. Some guys are acting a little crazy. Can you calm them down? Those who go on lockdown or something like that. So we see the foolishness or something, and we know the repercussions, because for some short timers they can come, they can go. We're still going to be there, and they come through a revolving door. So we will determine what's legitimate, what's not legitimate. We'll get on top of this issue. These same administrators that ask for assistance and keeping a peaceful environment, because they told me and Ronnie, and they told others, listen, as long as you don't attack our staff and you don't climb that wall to escape, we don't care what you guys do. Because corruption was rampant in those days in that prison system. And so these officers, these administrators that were complicit and asking for that sort of cooperation were the same ones that were saying, you're a gang leader, we're going to put you in TAMS. For the very same thing that they once upon a time asked you for assistance on. And so they elevate and they get promoted and they climb the ranks and they get a pension and retire and a good stand. They get awards and everything like that for the very same things that they held us accountable for, what they were complicit in. So that was hypocrisy always bothered me as far as that, you know, because on our own, like when I prove it over and over, they send me to New Mexico, they send me to Nevada, they send me to Utah. On my own, doing my own time as my own man, I know how to do time. You know, I keep my word. I don't have vices. I don't gamble. I don't do any of those things. I don't owe nobody any money. I know how to do time. Those states, when I left those states, those guys missed me. They told me, man, we're gonna miss you, bro, but you're a good guy. But you know why? Because we help other people. That's what we do. Ronnie was more tolerant as far as that than me, because he will be a good guy, like fostering dogs or something like that. Not saying these guys are dogs, but because he cares so much to care for me. You had to show me something for me to take that much of an interest.
Yeah. Because
a lot of these guys, at one time they would come in there and they had a little cocky attitude, and Ronnie was a little bit more understanding of, you know, he's this young guy going through. You know, I would say, yeah, man, you see him, you kind of like, you tough guy. Come on, I like to box. I was on a boxing team. Let's put these gloves on. I want to see what you know. You know, I got hands. Let me see if you got hands. And then
we see the test.
Yeah, it was not a test, but you know, you put up or shut up, or one of the two. But
put up or shut up.
You know, but like if Ronnie, he would have excelled on his own, just doing his own time. This man was somebody that was a thinker, and he didn't have to waste his time, you know, trying to help up these stray guys that needed. A lot of these guys, they come from single parent houses, homes, and you know, they never had a father. And so this is we're a little bit older, or sometimes we were the same age, but we were a little bit more mature in our experiences. And so we would mentor those guys. We would help them. You know, we welcome to come to my room, you know, myself, and we'll spend some time talking to them. We will cook with them. We will help them. We'll find their interests. We'll see what resonates with them, and then tap into that, because not everything resonates with everybody. You know, you might be interested in the law, and that guy thinks the law is boring, or so forth and so on. You know, we were able to relate to the guys on a level that's where they were mentally, and the mature level, and then tap into that. You know, on our own, we could have did much. We could have just not had those issues, not had those problems, because they retaliate against you when you take on someone else's battle.
So you guys were self-teaching each other, you know, like what you learned, and now you're teaching it to the other inmates, helping other people to, you know, pick them up. That sounds good.
Yeah, we were helping guys.
It doesn't sound good because you're in there, but you know, you do with what you can, with what you have. You know what I'm saying?
You know, a lot of these guys. So you know, sometimes you get these young guys who think that they're going to impress you with something they're really not really cut out for. So they think that that's what we want to hear. So they put on this facade. This facade doesn't mean anything to me. I see through that facade. You know, so let's get to the real deal, man. Listen. You know, these guys, they know we're real. Ronnie and I, we're sincere guys. You know, if something affects us, we wear our hearts on our sleeve. You know, we'll see. You know, I never had a problem telling somebody, hey, man, listen, bro, you know, I was wrong with that, bro. You know, I'm sorry for that. You know, some guys think that's too macho to do something like that. Well, I'm secure enough in my manhood, my masculinity to do that. Some guys weren't, and you know, one thing that struck me when I got out of prison was the guys that I was in prison with that are now, they got out way before me. And, you know, they have trades. They learned some trades in prison because they were in the medium prisons, not the maximum prisons where we were at. And they were like, hey, listen, I do a little plumbing. You need some plumbing work at your house, we'll come through. And they remember when we helped them. You know, we reached in our pockets time and time again to help these guys. And they remember that. And that's a blessing that we're experiencing now. You know.
Man, so I understand what you're saying. You're getting the fruits of what you helped, the people you helped back there. Now you see them, and they come up to you. And some people don't understand that. Why this, why that? But they don't understand that you protected them while they were in there. That you stopped a lot of things from happening to them. A lot of things could have happened to them that could have went bad. They could have been different people today because of what you did, the protection and the knowledge that you gave them. They're out here now successful. So in return, man, they look up to you guys. That's nothing wrong with that. You know.
I remember meeting the guy. I'm not gonna mention his name. He probably doesn't want his name mentioned, but I met him, and when I got out of prison, and he was so touched by us reconciling in the outside free world. And he told me, he said, hey, do you remember when you know, my own brothers wouldn't, he was a part of some group, and he said, my brothers wouldn't give me toothpaste, and you gave me some toothpaste, and I was hungry, and I was going to bed with my stomach growling, and you gave me some ramen noodles. And I told him, hey brother, you know, to be honest with you, I don't remember that, you know. And it was significant to him, but because I've done this numerous times with so many people over decades of prison time, I don't remember that. But I'm not minimizing, you know, the generosity. I'm not patting myself on the back. It just was so commonplace that I actually forgot about it. But for somebody like him, just imagine you, if you didn't have toothpaste to brush your teeth, and somebody who's kind enough to give you some toothpaste, you're gonna remember that. That's gonna be something significant for you, and you're gonna remember this. And if you ever see that guy in the future, and then you're already well established, you want to remember that guy.
Yeah.
If you're a good guy, you
appreciate people like that. You know, the people like that. You know, I appreciate you guys, man. You know, because I could have been a different route.
It goes to the title that we operated by. We purposefully sat down, me and Gilbert, and said, what commonality do we have that we went through life, because we came from children on up. And I was saying, we've been unshackled. We were bound and captive, not only in the prison system, but to violence of what we've seen in our community. And then, you know, to reach the plateau of the highest rank in a prison is the warden. And we're not here, the Unshackled Building Bridges, is not to bash the system of what they did or what we went through. And it's not putting people down. A system is a system, and it just operates. So as we worked along the way, we cultivated people. And a lot of things, they even wanted to do more things to us, you know. But by us being the peacemakers, we were able to say, hey, slow that down. Where they even came many times, hey, are these officers good in your building? Do we need to change them? So here we are, supposed to be these bad, unofficial guys, that where a warden would come and say, thank you that my officers are okay. Or and then even ask us, I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know how you keep going day after day of this stuff. But always calling on us, and no matter what, that they might have just took my coffee, or they might have just took my gym shoes, or they might have just all that, or moved me from one cell to the other, moved me from there, and to turn right back around, and we're on our post the next day. And I'll say our Christian post, though at the time I was not. I was studying Christianity, but I was not 1,000% where I am now, and not doing it for the godly sake, but the humanistic sake of just helping other people. So I see us as cultivators, planting seeds in them guys, you know, because we started out young with the same thing. So that's what we became, cultivators. So the next topic, I don't know if you got anything more about that, because that's the system, but I have a job now outside working with what's called the Illinois Prison Project, and what it is helping other people come out from the system, so they have to work with the system. And I've been in with, like, Max that has his program, Harry Pena, these different people, and as we talk to different people that are not supposed to, like you mentioned, we were in a certain gang, they were in another gang, the rule was you can't talk to each other. Well, we broke them barriers, and we went across those barriers. So as I tell people this day, that we became experts with having our enemies become our friends, you know, through the things we did. So when I hear people say, you can't do that, they're from there, or they're a Republican, or they're a Democrat, it makes me think back. I was with the people in prison who tried to kill me in street gangs, and been friends, and they go after each other like that. And we became friends that our parents carpooled, our families carpooled, and we helped each other all different kind of ways. So I'm a believer that, you know, we can accomplish all things. So I've seen it that way. And when I sit back sometimes and realize, you know, these wardens actually came to us all the time, I'm like, you know, they put us in that place. And I was just talking to another person, was Ronaldo Hudson, that I work with. And I said, you know, and I was doing a Bible study, and I said, you know, in the last chapter of Acts, I believe that Acts 28, the Apostle Paul, they took him from one place in the world and took him to Rome to put him in prison in the Roman jails. And when he got there, it says in the Bible that he called a meeting. So here it is that we were you know, incarcerated, and the subjects of incarceration and the degradations that they did. But there was many times that we would walk past the office and just, hey, and walk in, and and we want justice. We're looking for justice, and then something happened, and we want justice. And they knew serious enough that when we came that far, that it will get addressed in that way. And it goes back to us being the peacemaker. So I don't know if you have anything more about that. That's where I see ourselves. And when he came home, I was explaining to him, because my family was like, Ronnie, why do these men, as we'd be in a church or somewhere, why do they come up and hug you or kiss you or give you money with, what is this? Where's it come? What's this relationship? What's going on? And I explained to them, and I was talking to you when you came home. I said, in a sense, a lot, we seen life and death together. And we seen that, when we came off on the other side. And a lot of these young men, like he said, when they were younger, they knew the predation possibilities in that situation that existed in the earlier years. It was a big thing in the system. And for us to build these guys up, that they survived, now that they're grown men and they contemplate back on that, they say, man, they've saved my life, or like that. So, and it flabbergasted me that in the end, when I was going to parole hearings or to court hearings, 100 people would show up to these hearings, and when I would find out their names, these were guys that we grew up as enemies. And it was just something that, the involvement of that, and it just let me know we were doing the right things. We were building people, and had that favor and that anointing and that blessing.
You see, when you speak about enemies, now you're speaking about, you start talking about gang life, right? So, okay, so, people take pride in the area they come from, and they take pride of the group, or they could call it a gang. Okay, so, you want to take pride in the gang, do that. Why do you have to fight someone else that takes pride in that gang? Why can't you just be what you're going to be, if that's what you're stuck on, and let them be what they want to be? Why during these cultural parades, a Mexican Independence Parade or something like that, you want to go cross lines and fight each other? Stay in your lane, let that person stay in their lane if that's what you're stuck on. When you join a gang, what happens is, what you don't realize right away, you just inherited a whole rivalry that might not necessarily apply to you. Sometimes it does apply to you because you grew up in the neighborhood. I know some guys in my neighborhood that were stoners. I didn't want to smoke weed in the summertime. They never bothered nobody. They didn't even dress like we were dressing. They were like rocker guys. And some guys would come over there and they wouldn't see other guys around the neighborhood. They start shooting at them. These guys got tired of that, so they pick up a gun. Now they're gangbanging when they never intended to. Some other guys were drawn into it and they found it exciting or something. They wanted to join the gang. Well, if you want to be about that, why can't you just identify yourself without having to attack anybody else? You do your thing, or if that's what you're stuck on. I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying, what you're going to realize after a certain period of time, you're never going to eliminate that group. And that group's not going to eliminate your group unless you're a very small group. They might take some of your territory back and forth like that. You're going to be fighting over the little blocks, but you're never going to totally wipe them out. So it's fruitless what you're doing. So, you have to reevaluate it. And some of my best friends are some guys that once upon a time would not have been very friendly towards me or me towards them. And then later on I say, we were in prison, far distances at times, in Menard or somewhere like that. And we say, listen, bro, I noticed you get a lot of visits. And man, can we carpool together, bro? And then we start socializing, and we start getting to know each other. And then you become one of my best friends. Once upon a time, you wouldn't have been. And so this has become, we're exposed to each other in more of an environment of fighting each other, getting to know each other. And a lot of times sports played a big part of that, because in prison, the Latinos will play handball, Ronnie don't play softball. I never played softball. I was boxing. I was a boxer. And you spar with a guy, and you might be sparring with a guy that once would have been your rival, and after you hit each other hard, and you take his hard blows and he takes yours, and you get a measure of respect. You ain't no punk. Mm-hmm. You stood there toe to toe when I gave you my best, and you gave me your best, and then afterwards we hug each other after we sparred 10 rounds. We sparred 10 rounds, and that's a lot. And so we got to know each other, and then you reach a point of your evolvement, your maturity. You say, why did I waste my time fighting these guys? These dudes ain't bad guys. Yeah.
So, what we're emphasizing is, I want our audience to understand, these two brothers, they got locked up at 18 years old, very early, and they spent their whole life. So now they're out here. And now I understand when they don't understand something like technology, because the other day somebody said something to me and it was you. and I just didn't know what they were talking about. I was lost. And I understand sometimes when they feel lost because, they have a lot to catch up with. But, we're not trying to glorify the gangs or glorify the jails or nothing like that. We're trying to bring awareness. We're trying to tell the gangs to put the guns down, to make peace. Because, man, we went through that and we learned, man, it doesn't pay off. All you have is a lot of suffering, a lot of family suffering. And then the neighborhood's not really yours anyways. This program is about hope, about transformation, and I don't want no one to get the wrong idea. But I don't know if you guys want to keep talking.
I want to say something about that, but like I said, we came up with Unshackled and breaking the captivity. So whether it's coming from broken homes that we were captive in that mindset of having only single parents. So, and we've seen it in the system. I used to be able to identify that guy grew up with a lot of sisters. That guy didn't have no father. And then that guy grew up in Catholic school. That guy comes from a public school. That guy, and I could see from their actions because we were street kids. So, and it gave me an edge up how to relate to people. So I was tolerant for that because I was the worst of the worst from the system, the way they label me. So when they would tell me he's the worst of the worst, and then some of the people he's not going to change, he's not going to get educated, he's not going to, it was like because of our athleticism, it was a challenge to me that, no, he's going to change, I'm going to give him the utensils to help himself. So that's about the system, but to change the topic a little bit, we got enough time before we go. I categorized like probably 10 different categories of what we want to do on this. And we just earlier had a podcast with one of my attorneys, Jennifer Soho. So I'm going to get other attorneys and then run a string of attorneys for about a month. We've been about a month on what we've been doing now, but I want to come back and just ask you about it right now, your take on that. That I recognize one of my topic is sisters and brothers. And my sister became, even though my younger brother, Paul, did so much in my beginning years and was there every day, 24 hours a day to help me in any kind of way like that, like you would call it, my number one soldier. And later in life where my sister became, because of technology that I seen she knew, latched on and then became the front runner to be able to put the group texts together and to be able to do that stuff. So I know in my life it's my sister. Then when I look in your life, I know it was the sister. When we see like our friend Joey Mijos, it was the sister coming all the time. When we see Trixie and that, then it was the sister. It was always that sister, so we always had that. So I want to bring and whether you want to do it collectively, whether you want to do it personally, if your sister would do it, then we sit down because it was so important, the roles they played, of that. It's a topic of its own. So I was going to ask you about your take on that, how, because you have your own, how she helped or not helped like that.
Well, but I worked many years in the visiting room, and I saw who was the most dedicated people in individuals' lives. And it was some family members, like sisters or mothers. I saw the anguish in the mother's face, and it really touched me deeply. What they went through to see their son, all the hurdles they had to go through to see their son, and it was just like it made me realize the importance. Your values sort of changed. My perspective on a lot of things changed throughout the years. It took a long time for some of my perspective to change. Some of the things that were very important to me at one time in my life, they're not important to me at all. Me and my wife, we seen a car, and we seen a fancy car, and I was like, that's a nice looking car. I had a fancy car once upon a time. Now, to me, and I'm not minimizing anybody's value on a fancy car, I'd rather put it towards my home. I've become more domestic these days. I take pride in my backyard, working a lot, make it pretty. It's a sanctuary for me. And some things that I never even thought about at all. Not even for a millisecond before. The moon, seeing the moon or the stars. Now these are just great things that affect me so deeply because I was deprived of seeing the moon for many years. I was deprived of seeing or hearing birds or seeing birds. Now I have a backyard full of them, And, if some people say, that's the sign of someone being soft. You call it whatever you want to call it. I don't care. You know what I mean? It's something that will happen to anybody who is deprived of these things for a long period of time. Today, as I was driving in the car, my wife and I chewed a stick of gum, and I was just thinking. I didn't even mention to her. I wasn't 42 years in prison. They don't sell gum on campus.
No,
You don't get no gum in prison.
it's a weapon.
If you want to pay an officer $100 to bring you a pack of gum, that's a waste of money. Maybe, but it might be something worth to you. But for 42 years, I didn't have gum.
You know, I would like to
I have gum now. You know, so it's these are blessings now. You know.
that in closing, you know, to give a sign of respect that, you know, you coming home, and we're talking about family and the mothers being anguished and the visitors being anguished and sisters and all that. So to come home, and the first thing you did, because I'm trying to build my family, now you're coming back into your family, build your family, you know, like you said, to not invest your money in whatever people think, fancy this or fancy that, but you invested your money in a house, and he took a house and, you know, for his family member, and bought a house to build for his family member. And, you know, it's such a blessing to sit back that I want to do that for my daughter, for my grandkids, to build a financial portfolio for their future. So that's where it's like our similarities haven't changed from being 18 years old, spending 40, 50 years in jail, each one of us, then, you know, that long incarceration hasn't changed. And the training that we've seen from each other is like still paralleled on the same thing, that it goes back to family, staying structured to be sacrificial to build that family. So I give you applaud in that too, that he reached that plateau. I haven't reached it yet. I live with my sister. I'm always building in the house, painting the house, building things in the house. But it's about, my energy is that home front first, you know, and building there. So it's a...
Your determination is there, brother.
I look at the things he's doing now, and I was saying, so when I got released from prison, within like 3 months or something, you know, I landed a job. And you know, the brother who got me the job vouched for me because he's like very well respected in the workplace. And he said, "Do you want to work here?" I said, "Yeah, I'll work there." I didn't know I would be working so soon because life came at me like a freight train, came at me hard and fast. And I fell into the workplace stuff, and he went into a different path. My cousin Jimmy, his trajectory in life is something different from mine, and it's all good. We're all gonna reach our goals, and we have goals. We don't just lollygag through life. We have goals, and we're reaching our goals. And I told Joanne, listen, this is what we're gonna do in our backyard. Mark my word. And she knows, because I always keep my word on things I say, and we get it done. And Ronnie's doing something really good because he's impacting lives the same way he impacted lives in prison. He's impacting them out here, and that's why when I see the documentary in their hands, and I see the chairman of the prison review board saying, it's just a farce that he's doing this just in order to win parole. Well, what about you now? You know, I feel like calling him a MFer. You know, you called this man, you said this man was doing this to win his release. What about now? What do you got to say now? Why are you so sully, so quiet? Where are you at now to evaluate this man's life? He don't gotta do any of that stuff, but he's doing it to help other people the same way.
Well, that's the way the system operates. You know what I'm saying? That's
you need a bad guy. They want to put your bad guy.
So, you know, in closing, you know, I went to recently, they were y'all, you know, being married, my first wedding. So now I was looking at, okay, so, you know, this is how it goes, and just monitor now. So a lot of times in leadership roles, just watch somebody else. So that's how it goes. So I keep learning from him. So
you getting married next?
Like people ask me what's going on. I say, hey, you know, it's a partnership, and a lot of people say the thing, hey, you have girlfriends or you have this and that. I said, when I was 16, I had girlfriends, so I wouldn't call somebody my girlfriend. You know, I say it's better as a partner of mine that we're working for a future or something else, something like that, to respect that, you know, whatever I went through in life, whatever the partner went through in life, and I explain to other people, like I asked people, like when they came in prison, and a lot of people, they would come in and serve 5 years or maybe 7 years, and then they would come back again, and they would think I would be aggravating them, and they didn't help me or whatever that, and they had these certain feelings like that, and like, I didn't help you, I didn't do this and that. My only question to them was, you know, you know, are you done? Are you done yet? Because what you're doing to you, you can't help me because you keep doing these things to you. So you are done yet. So this is the partner that I'm after in life, that I do have, you know, to work with for a future, is to say, you know, we suffered the suffering. So I don't like suffering, but our suffering and our experiences is our value, and that's our our trademark, you know, that we walk through. You can't take it away. I don't need a reputation. I gave my reputation away. I never took titles to gang shit. Hey, why you don't have a title? I said, because when people came up, hey, you're my leader. I know you're a leader. You're my jefe. You're my this and that. So no, I'm not. You need to be your own leader. I don't want to be nobody's in that position. You need to develop for your own self. You know, I had a different mindset of helping people. So
So Ronnie always been, for me, I've been around him for a lot of years. He's been more understanding, or more tolerant, more accepting of some guys. Recently, you know, when I got out of prison, I didn't know anything about Facebook. I started with 3 people, it just spiraled out of, I didn't even know how, I was accepting everybody. I didn't even know who I was accepting. But, you know, recently somebody contacted me through Facebook and they said, listen, so-and-so said, you know, he wants to write you. You know, he's in prison. I said, well, you know, that person, when I was locked up through all those years, got out and was out for an extended period of time. And I never heard from him. And now he's locked up and I'm out. And I told him, so that's why I say I'm not a perfect Christian at all, like him. You know, I'm not saying he's a perfect Christian, but I'm saying he's a better understanding. I told the guy that sent me that message, tell him, I'm going to give him the same reception he gave me when he was out, which was 0. You give me 0, and I'm out, I'm gonna give you 0. I could be a bigger man and say that, but right now I'm not at that part of involvement.
So before we close and I give it off to Ronnie, to close it with a scripture, I want to ask you one more question. I don't want to put you on the spot though, but I want to ask you an honest question. Like Ronnie had, you know, first his brother, then his sister there that was always there trying to look out for him and run around. Did you have someone in your life that was there for you like that, in a way that was doing things for you out here that could run around, or were you lacking that where that kind of hurts a little bit?
Well, throughout my decades in prison, I've been blessed to have people in my life that when, you know, like some people come and go, but I always had somebody there. But before you close, Gil, I would like to say this, you know, like sometimes I've done other podcasts with Omar before, and some people ask Omar, why didn't you ask him this, why didn't you ask him that? I don't know your form, I don't know your plateau, but I would say anybody who sees this podcast and they have questions that they want to follow up, that if they were the podcast interviewer, they want to ask me, listen, I have no shame in my game. You know, you want to ask me anything. No bars hold. You can ask anything, and I invite people to ask you the question. You can direct them to me, or we'll come here again and we'll address those issues.
Now that you said that, I wanted to ask both of you guys something. So I'd like to see if I could bring both of you guys up here again with your sisters, you know, and have a podcast with both
eventually,
sisters.
this is what I was speaking to him about before. I want to do a series on a couple of them on sisters and brothers, the relationships. And I run into, and I don't know if you run into it, but sometimes other people, like they jokingly say, oh, your sister's like a wife, or your sister's just this close or that close, because of that commonality, you know, that when I came home, I want to help her every which way. She helped me every which way, and it's not that I'm not trying to pay nothing back. It's just I'm a believer in the original foundation comes from the home, and I came from a broken home. So now I'm trying to stop my nieces and nephews from, no more divorce in the house, no more split kids and 2 there and 1 there, and no more of that stuff. We have to learn from that. So this is my ministry. This is part of my life that becomes from the ministry part, from those kind of sufferings. I got caught up in the system, and I got such a time because I didn't know how to represent myself in the court, and I didn't know how to do that. But another family member ever gets in trouble, I do know how to know what the law is, and I do know where to go to get them help. So my family was a conservative family, and they didn't know. So now we know these things. We know how to live better, and we want better. That's why, and just watching your life, you've taken from the initial onset of your liberty steps to lock a foundation in that's serious. I don't need no 20 of these people or 20 of those. I'm building my, like he said, he got birds in the yard. You go there, you got birds in the yard. To a common person, what's this? But hey, he loves to feed them the nature. Like he said, after 20 years, you don't see grass. I spent all them years in Stateville behind the wall, and all you see is the wall and the sky. So the first time I went somewhere else, all of a sudden I'm looking at green trees. It dawns on you, hey, that's a tree, and you're like, and other person's like, what's a tree? I said, man, you just don't know. Or a dog. I mean, and that's a dog. And you're like the first time you see the dog. So all these things that we how can you say we experienced, we encountered, we went through, and it's all done. So we'll get to the sister and brother part. I just want to let him know. Maybe we'll talk to the sister and see. But that's where I'm at now. More family things so that more people can understand what we went through and you know, for the next generations. You
There's
know what I'm saying?
more to discuss, and we can do that in
We're
the
gonna have a lot of
future.
time.
Have another
So
podcast.
if we're done in closing, I got
Sure.
one scripture that I've been saying in the last podcast, and you probably know it's Proverbs 3:5, and it says, "Trust in God and lean not on your own understanding." So there's so many things in life that we don't understand. So the first thing we try to make things happen. So I just, when it's so abnormal, I give it to God so it don't drive me crazy or none of that stuff like that. And that's where I live at, you know, not on my own understanding. So I was once upon a time, we were in a system where somebody say, "Hey, let me tell you something." I was so arrogant, so rude in a sense in my own self. They'd be like, I would say, "Oh, you don't tell me nothing, I'll tell you." So it just would trigger me. I had these triggers that, you know, I had to learn about myself. So, and to soften myself is lean on, you know, trust in God. So I trust in God. I was in such a predicament. He was in such a predicament. When they say life, they mean life. When they say 600 years,
Yeah.
they told me multiple times, we're going to walk you through incarceration until your death. And when somebody tells you you have natural life, or you're going to die in prison, that's a threat against your well-being, and you see life from a different lens of things, you know. And whether it's God's revelation that came on me and on him to become these, in a sense, caretakers, these mentors, then I say thank you, God, because it brought us to this point where we're at, and we haven't let that post go. That's still our natures. So thank you for coming. Thank you for spending this time to come here, and we'll be come again. And like you said, anything anybody wants to talk on here, that's fine with me, because it's uplifting people, and it's good that we let these things out. I don't hold on to it. It's almost like the incarceration, it was 47 years. I already forgot. I gotta get the next guy. I gotta help. How can I help? Oh, your car's broke. Let me get that. Want your plumbing to work? Well, let me go over here. And we're just helping along the way. We have so many diversified experiences and knowledges, and we got so much to give. And that's what he's doing. That's what I'm doing. You know, and it's just a blessing. That's where we landed at versus being hardcore. I even have on my listing, I have a list of probably 7, 8 guys who were the most grumpiest guys and who grumping all the way through the system. I'm even going to bring them to, hey, let it out finally, bro. Let it go. Let it out, you know, because it was like that.
I hope the viewers will post some questions, Gil and you, Ronnie, and you know, if they want to know something directly, they ask the question.
So if you guys have any questions, you can post them on there, or we'll respond, you know, to any question actually. You know, I would like to see more questions put up there about us, or about the people that I put up here, or the people that we put up here. And bring us up with the scripture, Ronnie, before
That's what it is. Proverbs 3:5 says, trust in God with all your heart. It says, lean not on your own understanding. And that's the scripture. I believe in that because the Bible also says, walk by faith and not by sight, because when we see and we hear with our common senses, we see ugliness, we see different things, and it triggers us in different ways. So it's just walking in that faith, and in that faith, you know, God says to do uplift people. He says to love him first and love your neighbor by yourself. And this is where I walk at. I know he's not speaking all the time, but just watch his action, and his action says what he's doing. You know what I mean? That's it.
But with that being said, this is Unshackled Building Bridges. Till next episode, God bless you.
Ronnie's seen it all from the inside walls. Gil got a vision that still stands tall. We don't beg for seats, we build